QE is an idiot. He doesn't know anything.
He's got some nice citations, though.
He's a nincompoop.
He can be pretty smart.
He doesn't think
Citation.
he doesn't think mass exists.
Well, the only thing is mass changes so much.
It never changes unless it gets converted.
Theoria apostasis.
Unless it gets converted into
What's
energy. I mean, so that would be how it would change. It would change from energy, from mass into energy, or back from energy into mass. But other than that, the amount of mass in an object never changes.
Well, if we're talking about the mass that interacts with, say, a scale, depending on how much the medium supports the object before it, weighs on the scale, you get a different mass even with that. So the number of interactions that we label as mass seems to be very mutable.
That's not how scales work, and it's not how anything works. The mass is the same.
Well, we know
the mass. If
we know temperature changes.
No, the temperature doesn't change the amount of mass. So if I have
weight.
If I have weight is how much something feels the force of gravity, right? So if you have a 1 pound weight, right, it's going to have the same amount of mass at sea level that it's going to have at the bottom of the ocean that it's going to have on Mars. It'll have the same amount of mass, but it will weigh different.
Perhaps this mass is a group of interactions depending on how much the medium is supporting the object or interacting with the object.
That's just gibberish. That has nothing to do with any kind of physics anybody has. It's not even bad Aristotelian physics. I mean, Aristotle had a physics that was wrong, but it made a certain amount of sense. But what you just said isn't even that.
Well, theoria apophasis goes over the conditions in which what we consider mass changes.
I don't know what that word is.
Depending on where you are in the medium.
What's
it
this?
It changes depending on the vectors of forces going in and out of the object.
What's this word?
Depending.
What's this word? Theoria apophasis. What is that?
He's got a weird name. They call this dude, he's a YouTuber, they call him Magnetic Fester, kind of fat,
him.
bald.
He's wrong about almost everything he says. He's a crackpot. He's an idiot. He's another crackpot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know anything. He just spouts gibberish like you do.
Something.
No, he doesn't know anything.
He may be on this.
Are y'all talking about Ken Wheeler?
Theoria, something.
He's a crank. Yeah, Brenda's right.
Yeah. He's this crackpot. I think he's an electric universe proponent, or he's got all kinds of bizarre ideas, and none of them bear any relation to any kind of known science. He's just a
fine. But when he actually talks about the magnets and the stuff, he knows what he's talking about then, right? Like his theories might be crazy.
I haven't really listened to a great deal. It might be the case that he says some correct things about magnetism. I would be kind of surprised, but
the dude he's studied on that shit. He's insanely up there on that shit.
Talking confidently and saying a lot of words doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. And saying a lot of big words.
I've seen he demo stuff though.
He doesn't know shit about magnetism. AB Science just did a video series on him, completely debunking his entire notion of what magnetism is.
Yeah, so one of the things that people do, and a lot of people do, is you just talk confidently, right? And then you say a lot of big words and complicated concepts, and then it gives the appearance that you know what you're talking about. But none of these mean anything unless you can actually back it up with experimental evidence. Like for magnetism, you have to back that up with experiments, and people have done that already. So we already know what that stuff is.
That's why this guy can theorize, though, because he understands how these magnets work, and he's theorizing deeper than many people.
What he needs to do is he needs to write up a scientific paper and get it published, but that's not what he's doing. He's making YouTube videos. That's what he does.
Yeah, that'll happen.
He's what I like this phrase that the quantum eraser John uses. He's a pretender clown. I mean, John should know because he is one also. Theoria is a pretender clown. He pretends to know things that he doesn't know, and he couches them in a lot of complicated verbiage, and that gives the appearance of knowledge, but doesn't actually contain. Knowledge has to be backed up by experiment, and his stuff isn't. And AB Science.
You're right on that half of it.
AB Science destroyed him. I saw parts of one of his videos, not the whole series or the whole thing, but yeah, he completely roasted him.
I posted this series on the text chat.
Most of what Ken Wheeler says doesn't even make sense. It's just gibberish. It's word salad, like LemonBird does.
Yeah, LemonBird also does. It doesn't know. Knowledge means that you have not just a claim to believing something. It has to be backed up by evidence. And LemonBird stuff, with all due respect, Lemon, the stuff that you say isn't even good medieval physics. It isn't even that.
It has to be
Well, the
justified
thing is,
evidence is one way to justify it, but you have to justify it somehow. Ken Wheeler doesn't do that.
Well, yeah, there's
Well,
other ways
the
to
thing
justify.
is-
Yeah, I was cutting it short without
fair enough.
not trying to be too long.
Well, the thing is, you've already, shown that you've given up on rationality by implying that the universe is expanding into itself and creating itself with a sort of pantheism that implies that, being can come from being and being can come from non-being. At that point, there's no intellectual ground left because there are no rules at that point. Being can come from being and being can come from non-being as well, making intelligibility utterly meaningless. Either being
I understand.
other beings or does not.
So going back to the example somebody else gave, which was virtual particles, that's not even really debatable. It's like experimentally observed. And we do experiments, and we can actually, we can't directly observe them, of course, but we can observe. They put two plates very, very close to each other, and the theory predicts there will be a pressure between the two plates, and that's what we see. And it conforms with our theories about virtual particles. The thing I was saying about the expansion of the universe, it was something I was reading, I think last week or something, and it's basically it's a theory, and I suppose it's not really hard confirmed science yet, but my understanding from the article that I read, and I don't know what it was, New Scientist or something like that, they said that as the universe expands, it's creating more space-time to fill in. It's just coming, and they say it's just coming into being. They have no idea how, but it just is. And that's the current theory. And if they said, "Oh no, we got that wrong," then I would change my mind. But
Yeah, that kind of makes sense actually when you think about it, right?
I can't remember. I wish I could remember what it was, because I get my news. I have a news feed, and I get stuff from the Science News and stuff like that. And there was an article talking about this theory, and they don't know. It is mystery about how this process happens, but they believe we believe that the universe is expanding, and so
we know the universe is expanding. We know that for sure, right?
Yeah. And so where's all the? And since we believe, according to everything I've read, space-time is kind of a physical stuff. It is like the stage on which everything happens. And so the stage is getting bigger. So where's all that other stuff coming from? Well, they say it's coming from nothing, I guess. I don't know. That's, it's a popular magazine. Could be horribly wrong. I could have misunderstood it. All those things.
Nothing is a tricky path as well. There really is no such thing as a philosophical nothing, right?
Yeah, but we're on firmer ground with the virtual particles. That's been, as far as I know.
We do have evidence for that. That's been demonstrated. It's demonstrable evidence for. Yeah. Unlike God.
So that just happens, and so the thing is, Lemon, is that in science, experiments trump whatever your common sense tells you. So if your common sense tells you you just can't have things popping into existence, well, sorry, the universe has the last say, and the experiments show that this happens. So you just have to adjust yourself accordingly. You just have to deal.
That's not going to happen because of the unacceptable level of mysticism used to justify the experiment, saying that being can being and
Okay.
being can come from non-being with anything else other than God dictating that occurring. So because of the unacceptable levels of pantheistic mysticism being brought into quote unquote science, this has to be utterly rejected for a more intelligible construct, like an unseen ether that eventually is seen with light and with other interactions, but is otherwise invisible and
Always the
unknowable.
ether.
There's no evidence for it.
There's no
It's not
ether.
observable.
There's no
Acceptable
ether.
pantheistic mysticism, and this is where we're going to have to split because I will never accept such a construct in any way, shape,
Yeah,
or
that's
form.
okay. That's
no matter how
okay.
much
You can
mere
continue to
science
live. You can continue to live in the 19th century because the ether died with the Michelson-Morley experiment. Sorry.
He's living in a
Did you
fantasy.
hear that
of
Bob?
pantheistic mysticism.
Yo, Bob's
Screw
gonna
that.
publish the ether paper, bro. It's coming.
There's no
Luminaire C. You talked about it 2 days
science.
ago in 24/7.
Who?
I'm sorry, Brendan. This is mind-destroying stuff.
Sorry.
Mind-destroring pantheistic mysticism.
Oh, well,
So
well,
it's hurting your fantasy is what's happening.
wait until you hear about quantum mechanics. I mean, if just regular old relativity, which is the Michelson-Morley experiment, is what got Einstein on the relativity track. Wait until you hear about quantum mechanics.
Do you know how it's mind blowing? It's kind of funny then when people say they believe in magic, other people are like, "No, you're crazy." Like, what if some people want to look to the future of physics like that deep? You know what I mean? That they want their mind blown right now. That they call it magic.
I suspect some of that is creeping into quote-unquote science.
No, it isn't.
I can think of the world as magical.
Well, then I like you.
So there's
such a
this
nice
on
woman.
Twitch. On Twitch, there's this what's it? Econ Greg is his name, and he's usually on at night, and he's got this big old expensive telescope, and then all the people sit him and watch him while he pulls in pictures of different stellar objects. Certain galaxies, the Horsehead dust clouds, Magellan Galaxy, different galaxies and stars and things, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful, and there's nothing that says that you can't understand the world from a good physical point of view and also have a sense of awe and wonder. I mean, that's what Carl Sagan's main message was. Carl Sagan's main message was to combine hard science with a sense of wonder and awe at the beauty of the natural world, and there's no incompatibility there.
There's a great number of people as well that can accept the science and still retain their religious beliefs.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
But what
Fake imposter
science
magic.
here, though, you're basically saying that stuff can be true and false at the same time. That being can come from being, and being can come from non-being. There's no intelligibility at that point, ergo no science. There's no boundaries.
I don't know.
There's no intelligibility possible under such a construct. We might as well just throw out knowledge and just go straight to God and mysticism.
You can do what you like. I prefer to deal with reality.
Yeah, I don't particularly care what it is that you believe, Lemon. You come in here, though, and so we're going to talk about it and we're going to debate it.
But there's no philosophy here that makes this knowable, intelligible, or truthful. If being can come from being and being can come from non-being, there's no intelligibility at that point and no science.
I don't think that that's the case. I mean, the thing here is simply that experiments trump any preconceived ideas that you had. People did not like at all the double slit experiment, which showed photons and electrons going through both slits. And they really didn't like that, and that's what the quantum mechanics says. That's what it says. It goes through both.
More unacceptable mysticism without a coherent philosophy to help grant intelligibility. That's in with that sort of thinking, after a while, your science just degenerates.
Well,
it becomes less rigorous with that sort of setup, not more.
The idea is that comes from other scientists who say that all things have a wave component, right? So they have shot large molecules at a double slit, and they get a wave pattern at the other end. That means there's a sense in which it went through both. And that's a standard part of quantum mechanics, which is that atoms and particles and even people have a wave component to them, right? And for us, it's extremely small. For a bacteria, it's extremely small, but for particles, it's large enough that when you shoot.
Why wouldn't the particles go through both slits?
Because they're not really a particle. They're both. They're both a wave and a particle.
Wave particle duality, they call it.
Wave function. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not ready for it tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
duality.
Well, that's the thing. It's that people didn't like this. And many physicists have said, just don't worry about it. Shut up and do the math. Shut up and calculate. But the experiments are extremely clear. I mean, this is the way the world works. At the very small level, things have both a wave.
The experiments are clear.
The
conclusions, however.
Well, the conclusion
just decide for yourself about the conclusion. I'll just tell you that there's definitely not a consensus in the world about it right now.
I think you'll find that the consensus that wave-particle duality is a consensus.
It is. It's pretty much solid.
Okay, yeah, that much, sure.
Yeah, and that's what
Now think about all the other stuff that's talked past that.
Yeah, I'm just focusing on this because Lemon finds it breaks his brain, and he's right. It breaks a lot of people's brain, right? It doesn't make sense, and that's correct. But we have to go with what the experiments show.
Yeah, you just reject the mysticism for a more coherent philosophy. That something exists for the virtual particle to come from, like, say, an unseen ether, instead of the more mystic route, saying that it just pops into existence from nothing.
The ether's never been demonstrated, LemonBird. Nobody has ever been able to demonstrate the ether. They gave up on it centuries ago.
They abolished it because it went in the face of Copernicus.
Abolished. It was never
5 to 8 kilometers per second instead of the 30 kilometers per second ether drift that they needed to justify the notion of the Earth moving through space. So they just abolished the ether.
They failed to demonstrate them, and so they give up. They said that's a failed hypothesis. That's what happened.
The only thing they failed to demonstrate was that the Earth moved through the ether at the speeds that they needed. That's the only thing that they failed to demonstrate.
They didn't demonstrate the ether. The luminiferous ether was proposed as the media for light to travel through, just as sound needs a media. And it turned out to be wrong. That's not how light works.
I mean, this is just more of your, incoherent philosophy. You have waves with wave. That's like trying to describe a wave of my hand without my hand waving. There needs to be something waving in space to give these waves. It's incoherent, nonsensical to say otherwise. So that implies that there is a waving medium of space, aka
hypothesis. They did the darndest to demonstrate, and they couldn't. So they gave up on it.
You just given up on logic and rationality. You just take whatever pronouncement that science gives you, no matter how disconnected it is from reality, no matter how disconnected it is from logic, sense, and reason. You don't even care. You've given up on rationality.
Established science is thoroughly tested. I'm not taking anyone's word for anything.
They're just ready to accept their pronouncements, whatever they are, with no philosophy to test it or see if it's true or false at all. So just wait for their pronouncement then. This
It's
conversation's
not a
over.
pronouncement. It's something that's been thoroughly tested.
You should just accept your presupposition that there should be this hand waving through whatever, making all of these waves happen.
I think he left.
He's the
Right.
one that's accepting pronouncements.
Rage quit.